What type of people are successful with this business model? Can you give me some use cases and just some like someone who's maybe been able to scale to get to that multiple 15 plus routes and they've been able to make this into actually a 7-figure business?
Yeah. So I think in general, there's a couple of things, and I think this applies to a lot of the spaces that we work in, but from the really successful people I've seen who scale in this too, one, there just has to be a certain amount of openness with uncomfortableness, being comfortable with the uncomfortable, because a lot of guys have been in the space for a long time, and change where you're adding a route or where you're adding another driver, it doesn't feel natural. You've got this down to a science where these bread spaces, like you've done the same thing for maybe 40 years. And so you know exactly how to do everything. So giving up any amount of control to somebody else that you've hired is just, that sounds like the craziest thing you could ever imagine. So part of it is that first step I often find is one of the hardest, of deciding to add a second route. And then I think actually the second and third route are two of the hardest routes to add, because at that point you're still fairly small in scale. You don't have enough time or you don't have enough scale for a manager yet.
Right.
So you might have be hiring a couple of extra people, but you may be pulled out of the truck, or maybe you're still driving one of the routes and you got 2 routes over here that are going, but you don't have a manager yet. I've talked to a lot of people who they were like, a second route just about killed me. But once I got to 5, I was cruising. But I think one of the hardest things as you get more than what you can control, and like I said, this applies to basically all of the entrepreneurs I work with, is there's lots of people who see the goal of scale and size, and they even have the skills and the intention to get there, but it's the processes that you have to build and replicate and make sure that everybody's trained on and that you're inspecting what you expect, like moving forward, that I think a lot of people get lost in, because they may do some early training and bring the people in, but aren't thinking about making sure that those processes are still carried out and that everyone's doing the same things. And so you run into problems where if there's not a roadmap, then if somebody falls off over here, you don't notice it for a while, and by the time you notice, it's a big snowball that's rolling downhill, and you can't fix it. And at that point, you've got maybe 2 employees that have left, and you've got 3 routes, and it's just you.
Yeah.
So what I would say in the bread space in particular is the bakeries will provide a lot of support.